Welcome into Pac-12 review here, week 6 in the Conference of Champions. Was absolutely awesome. Yes, for you offensive fans, a lot of points scored, except in one game, which was on Thursday night, and we'll get to that very quickly. But I am Michael Caratanito here on Sideline Sports Network. Again, hit me up on Twitter at Diablos00. And yeah, any thoughts, any questions, bring them on to me, because like I said, it was a great week in the Conference of Champions. All of the ranked teams, well, they did win. Some more interestingly and close than others than I even may have thought. But the awesome thing is the top 25 rankings. And man, I tell you, I am pleasantly surprised, a little bit shocked, especially with a team that got into the top 25 now. So that means there are 5, yes, count them, 5 Pac-12 teams in the top 25. That being said, it's one of those things where I kind of laugh because they didn't play and they got in the top 25, but we'll get to that. But yes, an insane week, a ton of points scored, a mysterious injury that no one really knew about, but the team still came out victorious. So yeah, a lot to get to in this, again, like I said, as we will review what happened last week this past weekend in the Pac-12. Again, it was, and then ton of points scored in the ASU Colorado game. Interesting to see there. And Arizona, USC, Arizona, SC, again, Oregon, I said, struggled going down to Arizona, and they had a dominating victory. SC, we'll get to it. They won, but Tucson, again, just not Southern California's friend whatsoever at all. So let's get to it. And when we look at the scores from this last weekend in the Pac-12, yes, way back on Thursday, Eons go. Oh, by the way, real quick before we get to it, happy Halloween for those of you that are going trick-or-treating. And if you're an adult doing it, I'm just going to not say anything because me and my wonderful, great friend, Eric Wilson, who you can we'll see tonight too on the Sports Arena, 10 o'clock Eastern. Shameless plug, but the Sports Arena here on Sideline Sports Network. If you have nothing nice to say, do not say it at all. That being said, though, obviously, happy Halloween. Anybody going trick-or-treating? Yes, throughout the weekend, saw some always great to see creative, fun costumes. And yeah, football weekend, a weekend full of football, Halloween tonight. So you cap it off with, some Monday night football and going trick-or-treating as well. But I digress to the results. Yes, way back on Thursday, Utah, the 14th ranked team in the nation at the time, they beat Washington State 21-17 on the road in the Palouse. Yes, Cam Rising didn't play. I know I mentioned it on Friday in doing the previews, and I said we get to it on Monday. Unexpected injury, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that game. And then on Saturday, Oregon, pretty much in control of the game the whole time. Bo Nix, again, had another phenomenal afternoon for the Ducks as they go to Berkeley, and they beat Cal 42-24. Cal, again, has some opportunities. Again, talk about consistency. Cal's getting there. Again, for Justin Wilcox, it's a team. And yes, fan bases never want to hear it. I know, again, I'm the same way. When I take off my kind of analyst cap and put on the fandom cap, it's one of those things where, yes, you don't want to hear it, but Cal's taking the right steps, and it'll be interesting to see, again, where and it is obviously about recruiting, and the academic standards, obviously, at Cal, a wee bit different, but at the same time, I think it's going the right way. But Oregon still looks good. Dan Lanning, first season here, they get the 42-24 win. USC, like I was mentioning, the 10th ranked team in the country coming into this. They go down to Tucson and they escape with a 45 to 37 victory over the Wildcats. And again, for Jetfish, one of those silver lining things. Fans don't want to hear it. They're 3-5 overall. I'll get to all the records in a second. But when you see improvement, it's not all going to improve at once. So when you have to rebuild pretty much both sides of the ball, you have huge, awesome components offensively if you're Arizona. Defensively, again, yes, playing good, but things need to be tightened up a little bit. And no, not just because they gave up 45 to a very powerful Trojans offense. Caleb Williams there doing a phenomenal job running that offense again. just amazing job by Caleb Williams. But that being said, Stanford, they beat Arizona 45-37. UCLA, that was the Saturday night nightcap. They put up 38, and they hold Stanford to 13 points. Stanford scored their first touchdown in, I want to say it was over like 524 minutes of play. It was something just insane. And you fans know that I don't get into, those extra crazy, the broadcaster stats, and I won't call that one worthless because not scoring touchdowns, obviously, in a game of where you need to score touchdowns, is definitely not worthless. But yeah, they scored their first touchdown in the fourth quarter, and it had been for a substantial amount of time, maybe 300, but they didn't score a touchdown the week before against ASU. They just kicked 5 field goals. They had 2 field goals going into halftime. They didn't score in the third quarter and got their touchdown in the fourth quarter. But UCLA, another phenomenal, dominating performance by who else? Zach Charbonnet. Dorian Thompson-Robinson just has such control of Chip Kelly's offense. We'll get to that. But they beat Stanford 38-13. And like I said, Arizona State, a huge win. First time Arizona – an athlete from Arizona, a kid from Arizona, started for Arizona State since 2002. Trenton Bourguet gets the win, leads his team to victory, and it was just a well-rounded game by the Sun Devils. Yes, they did give up 34 points to the Buffaloes in Boulder. They got a heck of a receiving performance and a special teams performance from one of their young men. We'll get to that in that game too. But yeah, so Arizona State wins it 42-34. As we transition into the standings now, the Ducks, yes, still undefeated in conference play, the only team in the Pac-12 to be unblemished in conference play. 5-0 overall, 7-1, or 5-0 in conference play, 7-1 overall. The Trojans, with that victory over U of A, they're 5-1 in conference play, 7-1 overall. UCLA and Utah, both with their wins, they're 4-1 in conference play. The Bruins 7-1 overall. The Utes 6-2 overall is Utah. And Oregon State, they are 3-2. They had the week off, 3-2 in conference play, 6-2 overall. As is Washington, who had the week off. They're 3-2 in conference play, 6-2 overall. The Sun Devils, they move up to 2-3 in conference play. Yeah, not the best, but 3-5 overall for interim coach Sean Aguano. And Washington State, the Cougars, with that tough loss, played so well against Utah, minus Cam Rising, minus Tavion Thompson. Either way, Washington State, that's another team. To me, they're above consistency. They're on the brink. They need to close games out for Coach Dickert. And I think, again, they're on the right path as well. But they're 1-4 in conference play now, 4-4 overall. Cal, the Golden Bears, with the loss to Oregon, they fall to 1-4 as well. And Arizona, with their loss, is 1-4. Colorado. So Washington State, California, Arizona, Colorado, all 1-4 in conference play. The Cougs, like I said, at 4-4. Both the Golden Bears and the Wildcats at 3-5. Colorado 1-7. Stanford, with their loss to UCLA, they dropped to 1-5 in conference play. And 3-5 overall for the Cardinal. So, like, as you can see, a traffic jam up top between Oregon, USC, UCLA, Utah. Definite traffic jam. And kind of on the outside looking in to get into that traffic jam is both the Huskies and the Beavers. And the Beavers, again, with a lot to play for, they still have obviously the rivalry game, formerly known as the Civil War for you Pac-10, Pac-12 fans against Oregon, the last game of the season. And there's insane football to be played before that, but a big traffic jam there. Like I said, especially between the Ducks, Trojans, Bruins, and Utes, the Beavers and Huskies hanging around right there, but it'll take a little bit of magic for them. One of those two teams, or even both, to get into the Pac-12 championship game. But when we look at now the top 25 rankings as they came down, Oregon stayed put with their, even though they won, they of course stay put. That they're at number 8, 7-1, like I said, overall. SC jumped one spot to number 9, and they're 7-1 overall. UCLA jumped 2 spots right behind SC to number 10 overall. Utah, they jumped 2 spots. They're 12 overall and not ranked last week and getting into the top 25. And I said they had a shot. And with, again, the way some games went down, the Oregon State Beavers are now number 24 in the country. It's 6-2 overall. So the Pac-12 has the 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th, and 24th ranked teams in the AP top 25. So, and with the college football rankings coming out tomorrow, it'll be very interesting. No, I don't think Oregon will sneak in at number 4. SC either way will sneak in at number 4. UCLA either. But it'll be very interesting because if you look at the AP top 25 right now, Georgia's at 1, Tennessee's at 2. Well, Tennessee and Ohio State are tied at 2, but they have Ohio State drop alone. So Tennessee had more first-place votes. But let's just say Ohio State's 3, Michigan is 4. So you have 2 SEC, 2 Big Ten in the top 4, which if the college football rankings look like that, I don't think they will. Clemson at 5, Bama at 6, TCU at 8-0 at 7. And again, to me, that's a team I could see in the top 4, but that's not a Pac-12 conversation show, review show. But again, that's just TCU at 7. And like I said, Oregon at 8, SC at 9, UCLA at 10. So it'll be very interesting to see where the college football playoff committee seeds these teams tomorrow night. We will get the first college football rankings. So that is where we were at. Well, let's look at it. Let's get into the first game that I want to review. And again, yes, that was played back on Thursday night. And that was the Utes and the Cougars. Utah traveled up to the Palouse. And it was their first win there since they came in the conference in 2011 for Utah. Yes, they don't play every year when it was North and obviously the North Division, South Division. They got rid of that this year because the top 2 are going to play in the Pac-12 Championship. Yes, I'm bitter about that, but we'll move on. We don't need to hear that. They don't play every year, but the Utah does get the 21-17 victory over Washington State. Neither team scored in the first quarter. The Utes went into the locker room up 14-7, and then Washington State gets shut out by Utah in the third quarter. Utah put up a touchdown, but then Utah gets shut out in the fourth quarter. Washington State tries to make a run. They put up 10 points, but they fall, as I said, 4 points short, 21-17. And yeah, the story of this game was that Cam Rising didn't play. It wasn't listed on the injury report. It wasn't anything said coming in that there was nothing said coming in pregame that he wouldn't be playing. And Coach Whittingham said after the game that it was his decision to play. And he said that after they eked out the 21-17 victory, Cam Rising unexpectedly missed the game because of injury. And it says Kyle Whittingham had turned to Bryson Barnes, who played a solid game again, not knowing that you're going to start in the backup quarterback again, getting very minimal snaps, of course, throughout the week, especially in college, being different than the NFL, because as you all know, there's only a certain amount of hours that they can be on the field working with the players. Yes, they can watch film on their own, but getting in the reps and all that good stuff. So Bryson Barnes came in and got the win. And Kyle Whittingham said he just didn't feel like he was right, was his quote after the game. It was Cam's decision. Coach Whittingham said, he goes, if Cam says he can't play, he can't play. So there's no doubting him whatsoever. And he just echoed my thoughts. He goes, Bryson was not expecting to be the starter tonight, but that's the nature of the number 2 quarterback. You're only ever one snap away. So Tavion Thomas also out of the game. And Micah Bernard and Jalen Glover all missed the game. So it was a pseudo mash unit offensively for Utah. But when you look at what they did, again, 21-17, Bryson Barnes, like I said, threw 27 passes. He was 17 of 27 for 175, 1 touchdown, didn't throw an interception, had a solid quarterback rating, QBR 87.5. Jalen Glover, like I said, no Tavion Thomas. He got the rock 20 times, carried it for 76 yards and a touchdown. Bryson Barnes chipped in 8 carries for 51 yards. Yes, some were pressured, but at the same time, he was able to use his feet, convert some big plays for the Utes. And Jaquindon Jackson had 10 carries for 43 yards. Also, the other rushing touchdown for the Utes, who did rush for 169 yards on the day. And again, passing for 175 and rushing for 169. So 344 total yards for the Utes. And you're like, well, that's a little bit down from their average. But again, putting that offense that came in, or the players that came in, so you can't really ask for a much better performance, especially up in the Palouse, a little chilly and on the road. And man, it's just again a solid performance. And Barnes controlled the tempo. They slowed it down a little bit, but still, nonetheless, he was able to make plays. And receiving wise, you look at Dalton Kincaid, 7 catches for 56 yards and the 1 receiving touchdown from Barnes. Monty Parks had 2 receptions for 43 yards. Jalen Dixon, 1 for 27. Thomas Yasmin had 3 for 16. Like I said, overall 17 receptions for 175 yards, 10.3 per reception, and the 1 receiving touchdown. But they controlled the clock, and made it very tough for Cam Ward to get back, the quarterback for Washington State, just in general, to get back into it. When I just watching this game on Thursday night, again, I was a little surprised as with what was what was happening, and not seeing Cam Rising, seeing him on the sidelines. But the Utah defense, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for losses. And I've been preaching on this defense, Kyle Whittingham's defense, all season long. Yes, they did outscore USC by 1 point, going for the 2-point conversion late, but they're not giving up too many points. And again, just giving up 17 to Washington State, but 4 sacks, for the Utes, 10 tackles for losses. And Washington State, I mean, they had 7 tackles for losses. Their defense, again, especially in the in the first quarter, both defenses, but even in the third quarter, or in the fourth quarter, Washington State's defense, again, playing from behind, trying to get something going. But Washington State's defense, I do give them credit, because they had the 1 sack but the 7 tackles for losses. And although they did have 3 fumbles on the day, did the Cougars, and they lost 2 of them. So in a field position game, in a game of limited possessions, as we like to say, you can't have two lost fumbles, 2 turnovers like that. And that was inevitably ended up being the difference. If you watch the game, you saw it. Yes, a defensive performance from Utah. Washington State, they did move the ball. I mean, you look at Cam Ward, a phenomenal night throwing. He was 27 of 31, 222 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. He did rush 12 times for 28 yards. He had the most carries and was the Cougs' leading rusher. That was the problem. They were shutting down the run game. Dylan Payne, 2 carries for 7 yards. Jalen Jenkins for the Cougs, 4 carries for only 7 yards. Dejon Stribling, though, receiving-wise, 4 catches for 66 yards, averaging 16.5 per reception. He did have the 1 receiving touchdown from Cam Ward. And then Sion Nunnally had 2 catches for 41 yards, and Dylan Payne 3 for 29. Robert Farrell, he did get a lot of targets. He had 8 receptions for 26 yards, though. And defensively, again, if you watch Utah play and what they're doing, yes, they're going to be physical. Yes, teams in the Pac-12 can move the ball. I mean, UCLA, again, beat them by 10, 42-32. And like I said, USC, they beat USC by 1, 43-42. But a lot of points scored there, obviously. But you look at the other side for Washington State, let's say Cameron Ward, I love what this kid's done all season long. They go to they're at 500 now, 4-4, 1-4 in conference play. But what Cam Ward has done, and just the young man seems unflappable. But they did not run the ball nearly enough. 264 total yards on Thursday night for Washington State, and that just ended up being the big difference. So the Utes get the win as they roll on. So again, that traffic jam up top in the conference standings as Utah beats Washington State last Thursday, 21-17. We'll step aside. I'll get into the Saturday games, and we will kick it off with the 8th-ranked Ducks and how they fared at Berkeley against Cal, and USC also how they fared down in Tucson against Arizona. But we will step aside real quickly and be back with more here on Pac-12 in Review. All right, back here on Pac-12 Interview. Yes, I am Michael Caratanudo at Diablo00 on Twitter. Hit me up as we we charge into this final stretch of the regular season. And it is just awesome. The race in the Pac-12, the amount of great performances we're seeing game-wise, individual-wise, or team-wise, I should say, individual-wise, all that good stuff. But Utah, we talked about that, gets a win Thursday night over Washington State, 21-17. Now, though, we are going to turn our attention to the 7-1 now Oregon Ducks, undefeated in the Pac-12. They went to Berkeley, and and they get the 42-24 victory. And this is after, like I said, a fired up start for the Golden Bears, as they led 3-0 at the end of the first, holding Oregon scoreless, which the first quarter's kind of been a you could say a minor kryptonite for Oregon this year, if you're going to try and nitpick on one thing outside of the Georgia game. But when you see what Oregon struggling in the first quarter a little bit, Cal came out absolutely bawling, but only had 3 points to show for it. The second quarter, that's where the Ducks and Bo Nix and Noah Whittingham and the Oregon offense just start rolling for head coach Dan Lanning. They put up 21 in the second quarter. Cal gets a touchdown, so it's 21-10 at half. Cal still in it. Oregon shuts Cal out in the third quarter, 7-0 there. So it's 28-10 going into the fourth. Oregon puts up 14 in the fourth. Cal answers, puts up 14 in the fourth. With the cushion, though, Oregon gets the 42-24 victory. And what can you say about Bo Nix? That I was hard on him in the beginning of the season. I was hard on Dan Lanning coming from Georgia and starting Bo Nix. And yes, he did have struggles at Auburn, as we know, could it be in a legacy and all that goes into it, but just never seemingly got comfortable. And was it coaching? Was it play calling? It could have been all of that. And a little bit of, said, him feeling the pressure, the coaching, the offense in general. But Dan Lanning, again, defensive coordinator, but his offense, they're going up tempo, and Bo Nix is the man. Now, yes, he did prove he was pseudo-human this week, because Cal, he was 27-35 for 412 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns, but yes, he threw 2 interceptions, did Bo Nix. Cal's defense balling out. Both Femi Oladejo and Oren Patu had the interceptions, and Patu went down right away. Oladejo had a return for 26 yards. Very nice return as well. But yes, 2 interceptions for Bo Nix, which in the game, in the grand scheme of things, very, very shocking. Noah Whittington for the Ducks, 10 carries, trying to get that run game going. Cal pretty disciplined against it. Now, when you hear the total yards, you'll think, not really. But Whittington, 10 carries for 66 yards. Bo Nix had 12 carries for 59 yards. And he did have 3 rushing touchdowns as well. A lot of those from carries, touchdowns, I should say, from short yardage, but still 3 rushing touchdowns. So accounting for 6 total touchdowns is Mr. Bo Nix. The 2 interceptions, like I said, a shock, but like I said, Whittington, 10 carries for 66 yards. Bo Nix, 12 carries for 59 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And then Bucky Irving also got 10 carries for 32 yards, but 40 rushing plays for Oregon to 35 pass plays called. We know they can run the ball. Yes, they did gouge a U of A defense that, like I said, is on the mend, but they just ran the ball all over Arizona. They proved they can run the ball. If you make them go heavy running, if you're going to lay off, they have no problem running the ball, and you can see that. And don't say, yes, Michael, you're overstating the obvious. Coaches in this day and age, you have a quarterback like the way Bo Nix is playing, spraying the ball all over the field. And when you look at it, you could 35 passes, good amount, but 40 run plays to 35 pass plays. We've seen Washington do this, where Michael Penix Jr., who's having a phenomenal season, as I've mentioned, for Kalen DeBoer and the Huskies, but spraying the ball 55, 57 times. Bo Nix could be doing that, but Oregon, 40 carries for 174 yards. People are like, well, 174 yards rushing. Yeah, it is a very solid day. I'm not going to take that away. 4.4 per carry right there. And Bo Nix with the 3 rushing touchdowns. But when you're not getting as much success with carries, again, but Noah Whittington, 6.6 yards per carry. Bo Nix, 4.9. Bucky Irving and Sean Dollars as well, 3.2 per carry. 4.4 per carry. You're staying patient with it. You're staying with it. Cal has made the plays, had some interceptions. First quarter, not giving up any points. So when you look at it from that standpoint, not bad. 174 yards on the ground, but 412 through the air. And that's just where this Ducks offense gets you. And 11.8 per pass for average yards per pass for Bo Nix. But when you look at the receivers, Noah Whittington, talked about him rushing, but he also had 5 catches for 67 yards, 13.4 per catch, 1 touchdown. And his one catch and scamper was absolutely beautiful. Chris Houston had 4 for 67, and Bucky Irving 3 for 61, so 20.3 per, and he had 1 receiving touchdown. One of the 3 receiving touchdowns. They said Whittington had the first and third. Patrick Herbert, yes, the younger brother of one Justin Herbert, plays tight end at about 6'6", and he is a beast. Beautiful, just post a drag route across the middle. He was wide open. The receivers took the coverage away, and Patrick Herbert makes the catch and goes 40 yards for the touchdown. But yeah, he had 2 for 46 and the 1 touchdown from or receiving for him. Defensively, the Ducks, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for losses. Cal, though, no sacks at Bo Nix. They did have the 4 tackles for losses. And like I said, the 2 interceptions. Now, Jack Plummer was 20 for 33 for Cal for 214 yards, 1 touchdown. He threw 2 interceptions as well. Kai Milner came in and finished up. He was 8 for 11 for 114 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns. So 3 total touchdowns for Cal quarterbacks, the 2 interceptions. And for Oregon, Trequezie Bridges had the interception, return of 7 yards. And then Brian Addison had the other pick of Plummer. And they would need to get Plummer been playing well. They need to get more from him. But not bad. I mean, 328 through the air. But here is where the Oregon defense just shut it down. Jaden Knott, young man who I've been big on. Cal's been trying to feature him. 14 carries for this young man for only 57 yards. Yes, he did average 4.1 per carry. Damian Moore had 3 for 20, averaging 6.7, but 26 carries for the Ducks for 74 yards. Now, granted, Plummer had 4 carries for negative 31 yards. He was sacked 2 times. So that makes it tough. But you look at final stats, 26 for 74, only 2.8 per carry for this Golden Bears offense. And total yards, Cal, because of the passing, able to get over 400, 402, but 586. Again, blown it out of the water are the Ducks. 586 total yards. The Ducks were 50% on 3rd down conversions. Cal only 4 for 15, so just under 33% for Cal. 4th down efficiency, the Ducks were 1 for 3. Cal 2 for 2, though. I did love seeing that. They needed to go for it a few times. The 2 times they did to overstate the obvious, but 2 for 2 converting against Oregon. And the Ducks get the 42-24 victory. I love what I'm seeing from the offense and Bo Nix. It is a totally different team that marched into Atlanta in week 1 and played Georgia, who is still undefeated, and they've had a few of their struggles, and they are pseudo rolling. Would it be a different matchup now? I firmly believe so. But for Oregon, taking care of Cal like that, 42-24, it's keeps them undefeated in conference play, the one loss overall, and 8th in the country. So hats off to the Ducks, Dan Lanning doing it, Bo Nix each week, just keeping his name in there as a Heisman candidate and in that upper echelon of the short list you're going to mention. And no, not just because he's a quarterback, but what he's done. If he not doing it through the air, if he can't do it through the air for some reason, which he has been, doing it on the ground, this young man has just taken this offense and let it blow up. And the Ducks have done that. So solid win for them on the road in Berkeley, 42-24 over the Golden Bears for the Ducks. And now we will go to the next game that was also huge in Pac-12 play. As the Trojans, like I said, went down to Tucson and hold on for the victory. Notice I didn't say dominate. They hold on for the victory and beat the Wildcats 45-37 in Tucson. And you want to Caleb Williams, I know I just talked about Bo Nix, and it's not even conference bias. It's when you talk about the eye test and people say the eye test, wins and losses, yes, are going to factor huge into the equation. Where's your team ranked at, where they're at? But I transition now from Bo Nix to Caleb Williams. Like I said, as the Trojans got the 45-37 victory, the Wildcats came out punching, though. It was 10-10 after one. The Trojans up 17-13 at the half. The third quarter, fireworks of points. 30 total points scored, 16 by Arizona, 14 by USC. So it's 31-29 going into the fourth quarter. Arizona just trailing by 2, confidence rolling, feeling good at home, their sidelines pumped. And SC ekes them out in the fourth quarter, outscoring them 14-8 to get the 8-point victory, 45-37. And SC just playing survival football there. Getting credit for that victory, like I said, moving up one spot in the AP top 25. But man, it was in a loss, a statement game for Arizona. I'm not saying putting the rest of the conference on notice, but to themselves. Because you went toe-to-toe. You stood in the middle of the ring with this USC team whose offense can always counterpunch and seems to have an answer under Caleb Williams. What Lincoln Riley has done there offensively, beyond amazing, phenomenal. And for Arizona, this is a good thing for their offense, especially like I talked about, rebounding from what happened against Oregon and the defense getting beat up and the offense just not playing from way behind and trying to play catch up. They flushed that performance, but standing in the middle of the ring with the Trojans and just throwing haymakers to each other the whole game, not even just the first half, the whole game. And USC comes out with the 45 to, like I said, 37 victory. Caleb Williams threw the ball 45 times, 31 to 45, 411 yards, five touchdowns, an 85.2 QBR. Travis Dye, over 100 yards, though. Again, that was the big thing. 20 carries for Mr. Dye, 113 yards, averaging 5.7 per touch, 1 rushing touchdown. Michael Jackson III, on I want to say it was an end around, got a handoff. He got 1 carry for 53 yards. So that is one hell of an average, a 53-yard average on 1 carry. But Austin Jones for the Trojans, 5 carries for 27 yards. Williams only rushed it 4 times for 14 yards. But 32 carries. So 32 run plays to 45 pass plays. Lincoln Riley, you're going to get that. That's pretty close to balance for him. But 210 yards on the ground. 621 total yards for this USC offense. Now, you heard me just say it was a statement game for Arizona moving forward. When you give up 621 yards, you're thinking, Michael, how can you say that? Because the offense for Arizona responded, and we'll get to that side of the ball in a minute. Watching this game, going back and forth, Jaden DeLora had another just solid performance for the Wildcats. Defensively, that's where the growth, the improvement needs to keep growing. But for Coach Fish down the road, you start competing with these teams. You start recruiting. And yes, with USC and UCLA, their apparent departure to the Big Ten. But either way, competing with teams on that level, getting defensive guys in. You want to get the offensive guys in. You have to be able to put up points. You're figuring if we're not going to be able to slow teams down too much or stop teams or pseudo try to contain a team, what can we do? We need to score. And they definitely have done that. But Caleb Williams, like I said, 31 of 45, 411 yards, 5 touchdowns. Rushing, Travis Dye, 20 carries, 113 yards for the Trojans. Receiving wise, Taj Washington, 7 catches, 118 yards, two receiving touchdowns for Mr. Washington. Kyle Ford had 6 catches for 114 yards, 1 touchdown. Brendan Rice, 5 for 62. And he also had a touchdown in Raleek Brown, 1 catch, 6 yards, but 1 touchdown for Mr. Brown. USC or Arizona did not fumble or lose any fumbles. Clean game from that standpoint. But the USC defense, 2 sacks. They had 2 sacks on the night or the day, the afternoon, which is down for them a little bit. And a little bit below their average. They were averaging 4 to 4.5 sacks a game coming in. So to get 2, still big, 4 tackles for losses. It's the O-line held up pretty decently against the Trojans' D-line, and not a ton of pressure from the Trojans. 2 sacks, 4 tackles for losses. You always want to improve, but if you're Arizona and Coach V, you can live with that. You can definitely live with that. And for USC, but it's just the comfort that Caleb Williams, and I talked about it, the big thing, him coming over with Lincoln Riley, he gets the concepts, he gets what Coach wants to do with the offense. Now, getting the other players up to speed, getting on the same page with the receivers, that's one thing. But the Trojans, man, pretty much from go, each week it's been building. And Caleb Williams, my eyes in that short list too for the Heisman just for how he's balling out. On the Arizona side, Jayden de Laura, like I said, love what this kid has done this year too. 26 of 43, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception. But he was also, this is where, and again, not bad rushing yards, but this is where it was tough. He was the Wildcats' leading rusher at 8 carries for 54 yards. He averaged 6.8 per carry. Michael Wiley, 10 carries, 49 yards, and the 1 rushing touchdown that Arizona had. DJ Williams had 6 for 43, 26 rush plays to 43 pass plays, but they did rush for 163 yards, 6.3 a carry. And that's why I say when you look at this U of A offense, and it's not about analytics. You guys know I'm not an analytics. I get the importance of analytics, but at the same time, feel for your team. The eye test, what they can do, what they can do, to me, plays even a bigger role. But numbers-wise, you look at it, wow, you rushed for 160 yards. You had 6.3 per carry. That's a very solid game. That is going at a defense. And you pass for 380, and you got to think, man, there's no way. You have a very good shot, as they did, of winning the game. But the Trojans offense had the answers. They've had the answers all season. Like I've said, just that playing chess, they have the answers. And 621 total yards for USC, 543 for Arizona. So it's to the point to me where Arizona is making that stride. Now you see their record 3-5 overall, 1-4 in conference play, but they're taking steps. It's learning how to win those games and to try and beat a top 10 ranked team in the country. Yes, you're going to be up for it. Yes, you're figuring, it might be close early on because they're going to throw punches. It was close all game. It was a 2-point game going into the fourth quarter. 31-29, SC with the lead. So for what Jayden de Laura did, who throws for 380 and 434 total yards, he did rush for 54. So the 1 interception, and that was Bryson Shaw, who returned it for 17 yards for the Trojans. U of A, though, no sacks on the day, only 1 tackle for loss. So, yes, the defense is the part. Now, this would be, you can definitely, U of A's defense can be had as opponents look at this going forward. But their offense can also have your defense. And what Jayden de Laura has done, how comfortable he looks, even just in watching this game, just his command, like I said, of the offense, what they want to get done. The 1 interception, the 1 mistake inevitably ends up being the bigger difference in the game. But for USC rolling forward, what Caleb Williams has done, what this offensive line has done, Travis Dye, this young man, again, probably the top 3 in running backs in the conference. I'd go with 2 or 3 because we'll get to number 1 in a second. But USC going forward, and this is why I'm going to get, and we'll talk about the college playoff rankings the CFP rankings on Friday because they come out tomorrow. But for USC, this is a team that, yes, could definitely win the Pac-12, one of a few, and could be in the college football playoff as Oregon. We talked about them before. Because their offense, they'll put up points on any defense in the country. I'm looking you right in the eyes saying this to you. They will put up defense or points. They will put up defense. Their offense won't put up defense. They will put up points and score at a clip on any defense in the country with what Caleb Williams is doing, with what Lincoln Riley can do, or how he's running his offense. USC will do that. So they hang on in a tough place for them. Ever since I could remember, tough place to play for them down in Tucson as they get the 45-37 victory over the Wildcats. Now we're going to get to, well, Chip Kelly, they and UCLA playing Stanford. They got beat up by Oregon the week before. Everybody's thinking, how are they going to bounce back? Could they go into a little tailspin? Could Stanford, even though they haven't scored touchdowns in eons, could Stanford go in there, keep it close, and maybe beat UCLA? Yeah, the Bruins said absolutely not to the Cardinal on that. And I will start with my guy, Zach Charbonnet. 21 carries for, yes, the best running back in the Pac-12. He is number one. Everybody else, 2 and 3 below. 21 for 198. 9.4 per carry. Yes, this Stanford defense isn't the same as it's been traditionally, and they're physical. They'll beat you up. But the UCLA offensive line, they just kept going downhill. 21 for 198 for Mr. Charbonnet. 3 touchdowns. UCLA ran the ball 45 times for 324 yards, and just with an eyelash under 200 of those were Zach Charbonnet's. Dorian Thompson-Robinson only had to throw 29 passes. He was 18 for 29, 199 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown, didn't throw an interception either. He managed to, pardon, a little exciting music there for Zach Charbonnet and UCLA DTR. And he had 13 carries for 50 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Kashmir Allen had 4 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. He did lose a few yards on a rush because he had a 72-yard run for a touchdown, but still as long as 72, but 4 for 66, 16.5 per for Kashmir Allen. And they had 5 rushing touchdowns, and they added the 1 field goal. Receiving wise, Zach Charbonnet, oh, by the way, not only am I carrying the ball 21 times for 198 yards, let me get 5 receptions for 61 more yards. Jake Bobo, quiet night from him. I will say the Stanford defense did do a good job of bracketing him up and double teaming him, but 3 catches for 40 yards for Jake Bobo. Matt Sykes had 2 for 38, Kashmir Allen 3 for 24, but 18 receptions for 199 yards. So 523 total yards. It was dominating from the Bruins. And for the Cardinal, they finally got a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Tanner McKee was 13 for 29, 115 yards. He did throw the touchdown. He also had 1 interception. But this offense for David Shaw and Stanford just can't get going. Ashton Daniels had 5 carries for 51 yards. Caleb Robinson, they were feeding them 10 carries for 36 yards. Brendan Barrow had 8 for 33. They rushed for 145 yards, but only threw for 125. So 270 total yards for the Cardinal, and that's just not going to get it done against the Bruins. Defensively, UCLA did have 4 sacks, 6 tackles for losses. Stanford did come up with 3 sacks and 7 tackles for losses, but the interception by Darius Muasau for the Bruins, he returned it just 5 yards. But what Chip Kelly's got going, they answered the question, how would they rebound? And that offense, 7-1. That offense did respond. 7-1 overall, 4-1 in conference play. Everybody chasing down the Trojans record-wise in conference play. But the Bruins and Trojans, I would say it's the last game of the season, but since USC does play Notre Dame in Southern California this year, that game is the last game of the season. So they play the week before, but UCLA still will face off against USC. And man, whoo, Travis Dye is going to want to have a day. We'll talk about that game. I'm excited for that game to get here in a few weeks, but still a lot more football to be played. But the Bruins, Chip Kelly has his team just absolutely rolling. And again, that loss to Oregon, no shame there. But the Bruins, well, they're coming to we'll get to it on Friday, but they're coming to Tempe this Saturday. So that's been an interesting spot for them too. Just like it's been a nightmare for Washington. It's been very frustrating, seemingly frustrating for Oregon, and UCLA. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster. So, but they are very talented. So we shall see there for Chip Kelly and the Bruins as they come in. As they come into it. But we get to the Sun Devils go to Colorado and beat the Buffaloes 42-34. They were up 28-17 at halftime, 35-20 going into the fourth, and then they got outscored by Colorado in the fourth, 14-7, but had the cushion. They win it by 8, 42-34. Trenton Bourguet, talked about this off the top, 32 of 43, 435 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception. Valade, another running back, and congratulations to him. A lot of congratulations going around, but he is over 4,000 yards rushing for his NCAA career. The transfer from Wyoming, he fittingly got it. Needed 1 yard. He fittingly got his 4,000th yard on a 1-yard touchdown run. So 23 carries for 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns for this young man. But in the receiving core, man, Elijah Badger went off. 8 catches, 137 yards, averaging 17.1 per catch. Didn't get a touchdown, but talking about going off, the tight end's being featured in the offense for the Sun Devils. Jalen Conyers, 6 catches, 108 yards, and 3 trips to the house. 3. So, and then Brian Thompson, who's been coming on, 6 for 76. Messiah Swinson, the other tight end, 3 for 55. And Valade even added 1 catch for 18 yards. So, and Colorado, though, look, they're JT Shrout. He was 13 of 34, 222 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, threw an interception. But Deion Smith, this young man, 24 carries, 111 yards. He had a day for Colorado, 1 rushing touchdown. Also, Jordan Tyson, you talk about a kid having a night. 5 catches, 5 for 115 yards, 23 to catch, 1 rushing touchdown. Oh, by the way, Jordan Tyson as well had 4 punt returns for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. He had an 88-yard return for a touchdown. This young man, Colorado, like I said, it's been bleak for the Buffaloes. They also let go of their coach, 2 interim coaches going against each other in this game. But the Sun Devils come out with the win. And defensively for ASU, 1 sack, 6 tackles for losses. Colorado, no sacks, though. They did have 5 tackles for losses, but no sacks. Trevor Woods got the interception for the Buffs, and on a attempted flea flicker trick play, Chris Edmonds was buying none of it. He read it absolutely perfect. You can say film study, but just picking up tendencies. It looked like it was going to be a big completion, and Chris Edmonds came over and says, nope, not on my watch, and picked it off for the Sun Devils. So big win. Loved the involvement, obviously, of Trenton Bourguet, seeing what the defense was doing, putting up points in, the first and second half. 28 in the first, 14 in the second. But, man, it was a heck of a performance, a hell of a day for Bourguet, and a team that had 557 total yards, 557 to 359. So that was a beatdown in yards. Yes, Colorado was giving up a lot coming in, but ASU took advantage of it both ways. And again, 122 yards rushing for ASU on 33 carries, but 23 for 118 for Valade. That is a huge win as for the Sun Devils. And with the Bruins coming in, like I said, next Saturday, and it's very big, but definitely a huge win for the Sun Devils. All right, so Friday we will have Pac-12 preview, and well, a good thing is because they play Friday night. Oregon State, number 24 in the country now, going on the road to Seattle to take on the Huskies, going to UW. That is Friday night, 7:30 or 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific here. And that's on ESPN2. Saturday's matchup, number 8 Oregon will go to Colorado and take on the Buffaloes, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific on ESPN. Washington State will go to the Farm to take on Stanford. That's 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific as well on the Pac-12 network. Arizona, they got a tough one. They head to Rice-Eccles Stadium to take on the Utes at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 here on the left coast on the Pac-12 network as well. Then number 10, UCLA comes into Tempe to take on the Sun Devils. And it looks like that's, let's say 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific here on Fox Sports 1. And the nightcap, number 9, USC hosting the Golden Bears of California, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on ESPN. So, yeah, a lot of slated games on ESPN for the Pac-12, except Friday night, Oregon State, Washington, ESPN2, and then Oregon, Colorado on ESPN Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday night, Cal and USC on ESPN as well. Well, hey, want to thank everybody for joining. We'll get to, like I said, all that on Friday. Have a happy Halloween. Enjoy Monday Night Football. And yes, let's go. Pay attention to the Pac-12, kids, because maybe not the first one, but as the college football rankings come out and some teams, the way they play each other, fizzle out, they will be there. So I want to thank everybody at Sideline Sports, guy JB Ellis, John, Jake, and yes, my brother, Eric Wilson, again, for the beautiful looking of the show, and for the fact that you'll also see us tonight on the Sports Arena, shameless plug, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific here on Sideline Sports. So check us out live. I'll see you tonight. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Enjoy your Halloween. Be safe. And as always, like I say, it's about the Conference of Champions, but you know me, I'm a devil. Forks up. See you on Friday.